When there are thousands of passengers all sharing a confined space like a cruise ship, well, it's important that people are polite, but there are rude things that passengers do every day, and some that they may not even realize that they're doing. That's why I went to Facebook to ask Cruzely followers what cruise etiquette tips they wished every cruise passenger knew before they sailed. Here is what your other passengers think is rude that you should never do on a cruise. Let's start with something that will definitely get you dirty looks and you want to avoid. Anyone that's cruised before will tell you that elevators are the heart of the ship. With up to 20 decks in some cases, you're going to be riding them a lot. What's rude, however, is when passengers that have called an elevator try to walk right on when it arrives. Elevators, they will often be busy and it can be a wait to get aboard. So when one does arrive, your instinct might be just to go ahead and get right on. Instead of trying to cram in, however, you actually want to wait to the side, letting anyone get off that is coming out, and then you walk in. Otherwise, you're just creating a traffic jam that some might take as you being too impatient to wait politely for others to exit. Okay, this is a big one that I think a lot of people know irritates other passengers, but they just don't care. In fact, it's gotten so bad that cruise lines have taken some strong reminders to tell you not to do it. I'm talking, of course, about saving chairs by the pool. This real estate, it's highly sought, so much so that some people, they will head out early in the morning and put out towels to claim the best seats. Or sometimes they simply leave their things and go have a leisurely lunch. The result is that there are plenty of seats with no one sitting in them by the pool, but they are all seemingly taken. The cruise lines, they try to be polite and ask that you not do it, but it's gotten to the point to where some more noticeable signage, including on the chairs themselves, is popping up. Bottom line, if you're running to the restroom or to get a drink, sure, leave your stuff. But if you're hogging a chair while you go do other things around the ship, or you're hogging chairs for family members that are supposed to show up later, then it's considered majorly rude. Now, it seems like everything is political these days, and I don't know about you, but I find it exhausting. Unfortunately, that can extend to a cruise, and people on Facebook pointed out something that I had never really thought about as being rude: wearing political clothing. And of course, it being Facebook, it turned into an argument, but that's besides the point. It is a good point that I'm glad somebody mentioned though. You're on a cruise to relax, disconnect, and unwind. Frankly, to forget about the things that cause you stress back home. Everyone knows that politics these days are a hot button issue that causes a lot of stress in many of us. So when you're wearing political clothing, it's really there to stir a reaction, whether good or bad. Just note that even if no one says anything, it's definitely being noticed by other passengers. And the way things are going these days, no matter which side of the spectrum you fall on, half the passengers are going to be annoyed. Head into a buffet or a dining room or a restroom and you're going to see sinks, hand sanitizer, and often even someone reminding you to wash your hands. I can tell you though, a lot of people, they just don't bother. Your other passengers evidently notice as well, as this was one of the big complaints I saw when I asked people on Facebook. So what's the big deal if you don't wash your hands? Remember, you're sharing a space with thousands of other people. If you lick your fingers or rub your nose or cough into your hands, and then you touch utensils or handrails, that means everyone else gets your wonderful germs on their hands as well. So next time, just be sure that you don't skip the hand sanitizer. Now, I am a casual guy. Honestly, I avoid formal night most times, as anything other than comfortable doesn't really interest me. When I do go eat in the dining room, even on casual nights, however, I always make it a point to at least look presentable. No shorts, no flip-flops, nothing too casual. And I try to wear something that at least has a collar on it. It turns out that people not following dress codes at dinner really irks some passengers. This is one that surprises me somewhat, actually. For one, I never really notice people dressing too casual for dinner to where it offends me. Things like ripped jeans or shorts that reveal too much, I can't say that I've ever really seen them in the dining room, but evidently it is happening and other passengers are noticing. That's not to say that you have to wear a tux or a ballroom gown when you go eat, but you definitely do want to look presentable. If that's not good enough for others, well, that's on them. There are adults-only cruise lines like Virgin Voyages, and then there are lines that cater to adults but welcome all ages like Celebrity or Princess. But the lines like Carnival or Royal Caribbean that are by far the most sailed cruise lines, they cater to everyone, including families with kids. As a way for adults to be able to relax though, these mass market lines, they offer kid-free areas like the Serenity Deck on Carnival. So adults get their own space and kids aren't allowed. Or at least that's how it's supposed to work. One of the big etiquette faux pas is allowing kids in with you to these adult-only areas. I'll be honest, I have yet to see this happen myself, but there were enough mentions and votes for this that it does seem to happen. I think it goes without saying that if you're bringing kids into the adult-only area, don't be surprised if you get looks from the other passengers. I will never forget being on a cruise, seeing a passenger in the ship's buffet walk up to a bowl full of croissants, study it for a second, completely skip the tongs, and grab one barehanded and then take a bite. Imagine the grossness this would cause if 4,000 people on a cruise ship decided, you know what, I'm just gonna grab whatever I want. Yes, that is rude to do, and this was definitely mentioned among the cruise fans that I asked. While it might not seem a harm if you're only touching exactly what you eat, nobody wants you accidentally touching the other food that they are then going to eat. There's simply no reason that you'd ever need to touch food barehanded from the buffet. One thing that I think is pretty rude, but that actually wasn't mentioned, is one that I've got to add because it is simply such a big pet peeve of mine. It's being loud in the hallways late at night. Your cruise cabin, it isn't soundproof, but it's pretty good considering how close together the rooms actually are. The only place that sound seems to travel really easily, however, is through the cabin door. If there's someone in the hallway, sometimes it seems like they may as well be in your cabin, you can hear them so well. Now, most times that's not an issue as someone talks while walking down the hall. Big deal. But when it is 2 a.m. and a group of people are coming back from the bar and yelling or carrying on, it disturbs everyone as they pass down the hall. If it's nighttime, just keep it down in the hallways. To me, the entertainment on a cruise ship, especially the biggest and newest ships, it's a must-see. These shows really take things to a next level compared to sailing on an older ship. Evidently, I'm not the only one. You'll find theaters crowded, but there's always folks who come in late, and that's okay. It is a cruise after all. Who cares if you show up 5 minutes late? But what's rude and will irritate other passengers are the folks who come in late and then commence to stroll down the aisles looking for an empty seat in the front of the theater. Of course, it blocks the show for others and generally causes a disruption for those that did show up before the start of the program. Just grab a seat in the back of the theater or show up a few minutes earlier to sit closer. This is another one that thankfully in all my dozens of cruises, I have yet to really see it happen, but it's considered extremely rude. I'm talking about being disrespectful to the crew. There may be times where you might get frustrated. I've personally had irritations ranging from skipped ports to incorrect charges to slow service. It's one thing to get annoyed, but it's something else completely to use that as an excuse to be rude or disrespectful or just flat out mean to the crew. These folks, they're miles away from home, often leaving behind their families, living and working on the ship, all to give you a fun vacation while earning a little bit of money. Having to deal with a passenger being rude shouldn't also be a part of their job. Now, I mentioned about bringing kids into adult areas, but there is one more child-related issue that's considered rude by your fellow passengers, and that's making sure that your kid behaves themselves around the ship. One person talked about 10-year-olds running in packs and hitting all the buttons on the elevator. And another post about how passengers would feel if cruises went to adults only received 2,500 comments, including lots of people complaining about kids going wild on the ship. To be fair, most of these comments against kids seem to blame the parents more for the behavior than the children. No matter if you are sailing with kids, you want to make sure that they are having a good time, but also respectful of others on board. There are plenty of places for kids on board where they can just be kids without having to worry about bothering anyone else. But when in common areas like the theater or in dining rooms, make sure everyone is on their best behavior. Thanks for watching. Now, I know you wouldn't do any of the rude things that I just mentioned, but what do you think is rude on a cruise that I didn't bring up? Put it in the comments below. As well, be sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, happy sailing.